UFC 314 is right around the corner. We need the UFC in a better place, and I believe that UFC 314 can do it.
I think so too.
This card is stacked.
We had the one pullout of the Protez Jeff Neal fight, but let's hope that's the last fight that leaves the card.
And I said this to you earlier. We have the two most reliable featherweights in the division showing up to this fight.
Yes.
Volk ain't ever missed a fight in his life. Diego Lopes will take a fight on 1 hour notice.
He'll cut off his hand if he's got it to make weight.
Okay, I'm not even kidding. I had this question for you. If Michael Chandler got a Conor McGregor matchup and he was overweight, would he cut off a finger?
Yes.
Genuine question.
Yes.
I think he would.
I think he would. What if below the knee, below the elbow?
Yeah. There is a lot of questions going into this matchup. We got the age of Volk, 36, layoff, coming off a 1-3 record. The worst record he's ever had in his fighting career. And then we also have Diego Lopes, who's on this biggest title run that we've seen in a long time and has a bit of aura about him.
Yeah, we have the breakout star of the year. Lucas mentioned this in another video, but we've witnessed basically the whole entire UFC career of Diego Lopes, the whole rise. No one else has done what Diego Lopes has done in this 2-year span. And to think just over 700 days from that fight versus Movsar up, or was it the Contender Series fight?
I think it was Movsar because that was his debut.
Yeah, the Movsar fight.
Short notice.
To now Volk.
Yeah, and he did it legit. He didn't get this, he didn't get a Movsar versus, what's that dude, Andre Pico or something. He didn't get a top 5 opponent right off the rip. He had to work, he lost, and he had to work his way back up, and he's proven over and over again that he can KO the best ones.
Less than a year ago, he was one of the first fights on UFC 300.
Yeah, that's wild, dude. That's, dude, good memories, man.
And now we got him versus the featherweight GOAT.
Headlining the biggest card of the year.
And when we look at Diego Lopes trying to become featherweight champion, you look at the past featherweight champions, Volk, McGregor, Aldo, Holloway, and Topuria. 5 guys who are potentially all top 25 fighters. I mean, McGregor's the only sus one in that category, And then you have Diego Lopes looking to assert himself in a group full of greats.
You pretty much have 4 top 15 fighters and then the most popular fighter of all time.
The biggest fighter of all time.
And then Diego Lopes, maybe. So I'm really excited for this fight because there is so many questions. We need a good storyline. It's been a hot minute since I've had a good storyline.
Forever's Big Ank wasn't enough for you? Mr. International Superstar versus Mr. No Personality.
That's the worst storyline, especially
Superstar!
How it ended. If it would have ended differently, I would have liked it. But let's get into some of the questions we have. We're going to break down this fight. We're also going to be giving our final predictions at the end of this video. So look forward to that.
So we're kind of going to go through the categories, the areas of the fight, and talk about who's going to have the advantage in each of them. I'll start off with striking. I think that this is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the closer categories.
Yeah, but I think I give the slight advantage here in terms of pure striking. We're not talking power, just I think I'm leaning Volk from his ability to keep up with Holloway in 3 fights on the feet.
Yeah, I think over a 5-round fight, it's definitely Volk, and especially his technically defensive. He's sound in every area of striking, kicks, boxing. He can do it all. I think in the first 2 rounds, it'll be very even in striking because Volk, is he going to play it safe? Is he going to fight his fight like he's been talking about? Or is he going to kind of retract a little bit because he's scared of getting
and I think the first 2 rounds is where Lopez is going to really come out and potentially win this fight.
It's always where he's good.
So if you're Volk, you got to just play I don't want to say play conservative because that's where you lose, but keep up with him.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and beat him, but keep up with him.
Don't let him push you back.
Yeah.
Threaten takedowns.
Don't go on that back foot up against the cage.
Yeah.
It's one uppercut and you're done.
Exactly. At this point in Volk's career, it is a flash in the pan. You could be done. At any second.
Yeah, and then I think when we move from striking into power, this is one of the categories where we have a clear win for Diego Lopes.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, if you line them up side by side and tell them to throw their hardest punch, it's probably pretty even, but the way that they strike in their fights is completely different. Lopez sits down on every single one of his punches. You watch his training videos compared to Topuria, it's completely different.
Yeah, he is just he's got about 10 strikes in him and then he's gassed out,
Yeah.
and then he's just like,
If I tried that, I'd throw my back out.
Yeah.
Like, he is going for it.
That's why we see him gas out too, is he just puts everything into every punch.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that he has power, but it's also a hindrance in the
Especially against Volk.
third, fourth, and fifth rounds. And yeah, Volk, someone who just drowns someone.
Yeah,
with
if you
pressure.
can't put out Volk, it's a rough day for you, Diego Lopes.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't put out Volk, who's won? Makhachev is the only one, and that was a close fight.
Well, yeah, and I think too with this fight, something that's worrying me is if Lopes goes out there and has like a first 2 good rounds, but then gasses out a little bit and ultimately loses a decision loss. Like, or is everyone just going to immediately like off the Lopes bandwagon? Like, oh, he was never good, blah, 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 fast track too quick. And it'll be like, no, like he was good. He just had to face the best featherweight. All right, let's move from the striking into the ground game. You know, I think we have two opposite sides. We have Volk with that obvious, you know, elite wrestling, where we have Lopes with this jiu-jitsu, which may be a little bit unproven. You know, he went up against Ortega in his last fight, one of the best jiu-jitsu specialists inside of the UFC, but we didn't really see a lot of that on display. It was mostly on the feet. So it's going to be interesting to see how these ground exchanges play out if this fight ever goes to the ground.
Yeah, I think it was impressive what he did against Movsar on short notice in his debut. He threatened, I believe, 2 really close submissions, which could have ended the fight, and he was really pulling for it. That's why he gassed out quite a bit, like he always does. But the fact that he puts 100% into finding submissions, I just don't think it's going to pay off, you know?
Yeah.
If he puts all of his energy into, you know, let's say he randomly somehow ends up on top of Volk on the ground, and he's looking for a submission, I don't think that's the strategy.
I don't think you're submitting Volk. I don't think Volk's ever been submitted before.
If Brian Ortega can't submit Volk with a cinched up guillotine, a mounted guillotine, you are never submitting him.
Yeah.
Volk would rather die than get submitted by Diego Lopes.
He ain't tapping out.
He's never tapping out, bro.
So I think that we won't see a ton of ground game in this fight.
Really?
I think that, you know, Volk is obviously going to be a little bit weary of being on the feet, but I think that Lopes, getting them mixed up now, is going to do his best to keep this fight on the feet, because I think that's where he wins.
Lopes is.
And it'll be a culmination of how good Lopez's takedown defense is and how good his submission defense is and his ground defense is, just trying to get this fight back up. But I think that Lopes just has that like scrappy style where he's can awkwardly get out of takedowns. You know?
He's very fluid and like, you know, he can move out of things well. I think it's going to be interesting to see how much he's improved his takedown defense wrestling wise from the Movsar fight to this fight, because Volk is a relentless wrestler who can get you down. He got Makhachev down.
Yeah, and and you know what they say, nothing harder than taking down a Brazilian.
They do say that.
It's true.
They
it's
do
true.
say
When was the
that.
last time Brazilian taken down?
Yeah. I guess Charles when he got submitted.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
We don't talk about that though. That's something we erase from memory.
All right, next category, cardio. This is pretty obviously 36-year-old old man Volk still just running laps.
Still one of the best cardios in the UFC.
Yeah, whereas Lopes, from what we've seen in his previous fights, this is probably the weakness of his game. Is his cardio, is his gas tank. We've seen him gas out basically every single fight.
Yeah.
So it's something that we hope, you know, he's had quite a big turnaround in between his fights. So let's hope that he got on that exercise bike and got on the treadmill.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. He has had a longer break than normal for him.
Yeah.
Between these fights, so maybe he's actually let his body recover a little bit. I always see him in the UFC PI training, so I'm not sure if he's really taken any days off, but hopefully he's gained a little bit of muscle mass, and it seems like he's always super lean, which I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, he always is lean.
Yeah.
He just looks small, whereas Volk looks thick.
Yeah.
He's 5'4" and thick.
5'6". Don't disrespect my goat.
All right, last two categories. We're going to quickly go through these. Chin is obviously Lopes, has the advantage there. Volk, that's his weak spot. You know, Lopes is his weak spot, cardio. Volk's is his chin, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see what plays out in both those, and then finally experience. This obviously has to go to Volkanovski. You know, he's gone 5 rounds with Max Holloway on 3 occasions. That 5-round experience for Volk is unreal.
Yeah, I don't think that the chin is going to be like that crazy for Lopes. Like, obviously, most people are going to have a better chin than Volk at this point in his career. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Volk's chin has recovered from taking a year off, But I also don't think that Lopes has this unbreakable chin.
No, I don't think he has some granite chin. We see him get hit hard.
Yeah, exactly. Even Ortega stunned him a couple times, like nothing crazy at all, but definitely felt those shots.
He's the type of guy that'll get stunned like 3 or 4 times a fight.
Yeah, that's what. It feels like that's gonna happen.
He's like she shakes it off his back.
Yeah. Spamming uppercuts. Yeah. So should we talk about how we actually see this fight playing out?
Yeah, let's give our predictions and how we see it playing out. I'll let you go first here.
Okay. I think the first 2 rounds are probably going to be similar to the Topuria fight, to be honest. I think Volk is going to be clearly the more technical fighter than Diego Lopes. He's going to be having higher output. He's going to be having more leg kicks. He's going to be jabbing. He's just going to be doing his thing like he always does, kind of finding that distance, which he's really good at, and trying to stay out of that power shots of Lopes, because Volk and his team game plan some of the best game plans of all time, right? Like, he is so good at game planning because he has all the tools to win against anyone. So he's seen Lopes gas out at 3rd rounds multiple times now, and he knows that if he can bring it to the 3rd, 4th, I don't think he'll need a 5th, but if he brings it to those later rounds, he knows that he probably can get a finish, right? So I think he's going to be not tentative, because you can't be tentative with Lopes, else he's going to catch you. But I think he's going to be pushing the pace on Lopes, making sure that he's always moving. I think if you put Lopes on the back foot, I think he's going to struggle quite a bit. That also tires you out more when you're always the one circling rather than aggressing. So if he's always, flinching at the shots, I think Volk is going to have a way better gas tank later in the fight. And then from the 3rd round on, he's just going to take control. He's going to take control on the feet. He's going to take control on the ground. I think he probably finishes it late 3rd round, ground and pound finish.
All right. Here's the thing. That was a beautiful explanation of what we see happening in this fight, but I don't really have to explain much because this fight has already played out this year. I'm talking about the UFC Saudi Arabia main event, Imavov versus Adesanya. Volk is Adesanya. Lopes is Imavov. I don't know why, but I have that Lopes feeling that come next week we are going to see him at the top of the cage with that belt. And I lied to him, telling him I was going Volk decision. Wow. But I like to be different. I'm gonna ride with my boy Diego Lopes, and I think that he's gonna catch Volk in that 2nd round, and
it could happen.
Inevitably win the belt. And could that be it for Volk after that fight? Who knows?
If he gets KO'd, I think it should be. Like, what do you have to prove, bro?
Exactly.
Anderson Silva take? Like, no. But I think
it's tough. Like, he was talking about how this was an easy prediction. I think it's tough.
Yeah, it is, because
just the way that we've seen these old fighters look. These former champions have not been looking good this year.
It's true, but I think, like, in terms of the skill differential, this is the biggest skill differential in any fight main event we've had so far. Islam Sarukian, I would say that those are the highest skilled guys in their division. And then we had Dricus Strickland, 2 very high-level guys who went to a split decision pretty much in their previous fight.
Yeah.
So we know they're on the same level. 313, I thought Pereira's going to win. Ank won.
Yeah.
So very close fight. And now this, I just feel like Volk is clearly levels ahead of Lopes. The only shot that Lopes has is that KO.
Yeah.
And we were saying, honestly, we were thinking the same thing about Topuria, when he fought Volk. And look what happened. So, I don't know. But now we know how good Topuria is.
Yeah. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Those are our 314 main event predictions. Go down to the comments. Let us know, what do you guys think happens in that main event? While you guys are down there, make sure you like and subscribe. We appreciate all the love and support. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.